Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Chris Buckley, and I am part of the I-405 Improvement Project Community Outreach Team. I'd like to thank you for joining us today for this online meeting. I'll be providing an update on the activities along Almond Avenue. I'll begin in a few moments with the presentation, which will be followed by a Q&A session. Feel free to submit your questions at any time during the presentation using the chat box. Under the Files section, you'll see several PDFs. These include the project fact sheet, bridge map and fast facts, our Express Lanes FAQ and Express Lanes access map. And in addition, we've included PDFs with details about the Almond Avenue walls in case you couldn't attend the initial meeting in May. And under the Offers section, you'll find a link to sign up for project alerts. I'll be referring to that again later. So meanwhile, I'd like to introduce Nikki Wright, who's joining me for this discussion. She is. And I'd like to acknowledge our team members, Joey Fernandez, Asia Stansell, and Anna Finley, who are working behind the scenes to keep this meeting running smoothly. Finally, I want to let you know that the meeting is being recorded and will be available at bit.ly/webinar Almond update tomorrow after 3 p.m. So if you missed something or you know someone who couldn't join us this evening, head over or tell them to head over to bit.ly/405webinar-almond update. Almond update is all one word. Now let's jump right into the Almond Avenue activities. First, there we go, thank you. First, I want to provide you an update on utility work, and I'll follow that with details about the 2 sections of wall being removed and rebuilt, as well as the latest schedule for those activities. So over the last several months, you've likely seen the utility crews out along Almond with a lot of trenching work and other activities as Southern California Edison, Frontier, and Exo Communications have moved their lines underground. That work is mostly done. I'll talk a little bit more about this in a second here. Let me see. Now let's just talk right about the walls. So we had a meeting back in May, I think May 5th, and some of you may have joined us for that meeting, but some of you may not have. So I wanted to go back over the slides we presented, and these slides are also available, as I mentioned earlier, under the Files section. So if you click on the Files tab, you'll find them there. So first slide. This gives you an overview of the wall locations, right? So you can see that wall 1132, which we're going to refer to as wall 1, is west of Almond Park, and wall 1114, which we're going to refer to as wall 2, is east of the park. So if we take a look, this is a look at wall 1, also known as wall 1132, and it stretches from Almond Park to Dahlia. And in this slide, and again, this is available in the PDFs under the Files section, you can see the street width, right? So in most cases, we're maintaining the street width, although it starts to taper a little bit around Concord Court, is that right? It's hard to see there, sorry, I'm looking at the screen just like you guys are. In the middle, though, it tapers a little bit. It gets no narrower than 36 feet. Then it comes up to 37, 39, and back up to 40 feet as we go all the way to Dahlia Circle. Now I want to move to the next wall, what we're calling wall 2, which is 1114. It's Primrose to Almond Park. Again, we have a similar situation here where we have a little bit of a narrowing in the middle. It goes from 40 feet down to 37 and back up to 40 feet. So again, and we'll answer any questions about these that you have, but again, these are the general locations of the wall and the width of the street from curb to curb, I believe. So before I get to that schedule, I want to talk a little bit more about those utilities that I mentioned earlier. The work on the walls themselves has been pushed out a bit because the utility work has been delayed. So There's still a bit more of that work to do, including relocating about a half dozen fire hydrants from the wall side of the street to the residential side of the street. And that's expected to be completed by mid to late January. Once those are moved, things will be able to go a little bit smoother on the walls. The hydrants will always be live during this transition, except for a short cutover time when they are tied into the water line on Almond Avenue. In addition, SCE still has some poles to remove east of Almond Park, and that work is set for late January to early February. Meanwhile, on the freeway side, the 405 project contractor is going to continue working on the drainage systems. And this drainage system work will continue as the wall work is being done. It will finish before the wall work is completed, though, of course. It is scheduled to be completed sometime in March. So now I want to just talk a little bit about the wall demolition schedule. First, it's important to note that the contractor will be placing K-rail along the areas of the wall that are going to be demolished. Chain link fence will be installed on top of the K-rail, and sound blankets will be attached to the fence. This work is going to require some temporary restriping along these parts of Almond Avenue, and it will also eliminate parking on the south side of the street where the K-rail is being set up. However, vehicles will still be able to park on the north side of Almond Avenue in these locations. So across from the K-rail, we're not eliminating any parking, but obviously you won't be able to park in the area where the construction activity is taking place. And by the way, all of the work is anticipated to take place from the freeway side. So that is the way it's been set up. There won't be work taking place. There won't be machinery or anything on Almond Avenue for this. It'll all be occurring from the freeway side. So once the K-rail and sound blankets are in place, demolition work can begin. So talk a little bit about this schedule. Demolition is expected to start in mid-January for Wall 1. That's the really long wall between Almond Park and Dahlia Circle, right? And the demolition on Wall 2 from Primrose to Almond Park is anticipated to take place in mid-February. We can get you more specifics on how much time, but you can see there it's a little over 2 weeks for the first wall and probably about a week for the second wall. So moving on to construction. Wall 1, as you can see from the long blue line, that's the stretch of time that the work is expected to take. Starts in early February, pretty much right after demolition, and extends all the way through to early July. The first part of the work is the foundation. The drainage work will be ongoing here, and the foundation work will just follow the drainage work. So just imagine the wall being constructed, the foundation of the wall being constructed as it follows the drainage work being installed. The foundation of the walls includes steel piles. Sorry, cast and drilled hole piles, not steel piles. So the pile installation for these walls, there are 246 piles for Wall 1 and 71 piles for Wall 2. These piles are not steel, I apologize. They are cast in drilled hole piles. That means a large auger is used to drill a hole to the appropriate depth based on the design for the wall. And then a steel cage is inserted in that hole and the concrete is poured in there to form the pile, right? And there's an outer casing as well. So that forms these piles. As I mentioned, there are 246 that need to be installed for the first wall, 71 for the second wall. So coming back here, once the foundation is done for wall number 1, they'll move to the barrier. So that's about a 3-foot concrete barrier that is starts at roadway grade and then goes up, and then the wall is constructed. The block wall is constructed on top of that. And harking back to the earlier slides, we can always go back there, but those walls will be 18 feet high. So they're currently 18 feet high. With the barrier and the walls, it will continue to be 18 feet high. So nothing changes about the height of the wall, either section of wall. The block wall, as you can see, the barrier work will take place in June, and the block wall portion for the long wall for Wall 1 will take place in late June and early July. For Wall 2, as you can see, the work's going to start toward the end of March and continue through about mid-July. The foundation work, Nikki, can you move our photos off the schedule here? Can you move them to the left or the middle or something? So the foundation work for Wall 2 will occur between the end of March and take through about mid-June. Let's see. There. No.
I'm gonna take our photos off here.
Fantastic. I know people would much rather see our schedule, the schedule, than our mugs.
Okay. Oops, maybe not.
We have this in the PDF, so I think that's okay. The barrier itself will take a little less time because it's a shorter wall than the barrier for Wall 1. And then the block wall portion will take about until mid-July. We'll begin after the barrier is complete and take through about mid-July. One of the things you may be asking is, why is there such a time gap between the demolition of wall number 2 and the start of construction on wall number 2 on the foundation? And the reason for that is because on wall 2, the contractor will be working on drainage right after demolition, as well as preparing the, on wall 1, I should say. Wall 1, the contractor will be able to mobilize their CIDH contractor, their pile contractor, right behind the drainage work. So they'll be working on wall number 1. They'll demolish the wall. They're already installing some drainage, and they'll continue to install the drainage, which goes right adjacent to the wall there, and to the foundation, and again on the freeway side. And they will be able to have the CIDH pile subcontractor come in right and follow the drainage work. That can't happen on wall number 2 because they have the gap between the demo and pile work on wall 2 because the contractor is going to be working on drainage after demolition. And that one drainage contractor, they've still got the work to do adjacent to wall number 2, as well as preparing the foundation area, doing some trench work there prior to installing the piles. So there's some preparation work that happens between the two activities, demo and pile work for wall 2. So my picture's still up there. I'm sorry about that. I'm going to move on to the next slide, tell you a little about project contact information, and I will move into the Q&A period so we can get that done quickly. So these days, as you can probably imagine, the outreach team is relying more heavily on digital communication tools and virtual meetings like this one. If you haven't already, and for that reason, if you haven't already, we strongly encourage you to sign up for our construction alerts. As I mentioned earlier, if you go to the offers tab, you can click on the image and it will take you to a sign up page. You can choose to get project-wide alerts as well as Almond Avenue specific alerts, and you can get alerts that are specific to any of the bridge activities as well. The weekly construction alerts, those are once a week, and then we also have the major activities alerts for each of the bridges and the walls. Those are, there's a little bit more time in between. Those are not as frequent, right? Because we notify about major activities there. So I'm hearing from Nikki that her internet went out, so it's just me on the line. Hopefully you can see me. Let's take a look here. Can I ask folks in the audience there, if you can still hear me, would you do me a favor and type a 1 into the chat? Just want to make sure. Yes, we can see you. Thanks, Susan Berenbaum. Much appreciated. All right. Yep, thank you. Excellent. So you can still see me. That's good. Fantastic. Beautiful. Appreciate your help. So on this page, our project contact information. It's as I mentioned first, for sure, sign up for our alerts. We've revamped our project webpage at octa.net/405 improvement. So take a look there. Really good information for you. We also have our mobile app available in the Apple Store and on Google Play, as well as our interactive map, which links to Waze, the navigation app. Meanwhile, you can always find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or email or call us working on some of those. And hopefully Nikki will be able to join me in just a moment. So John asks, once wall 1 is completed, will landscaping be replanted and replaced? I'm going to broadcast this to the room. This is our question. And the answer to the question is yes, but landscaping is traditionally held off until the end of the project. The purpose of doing that is there is a maintenance period, a plant establishment period, essentially, where the contractor is responsible for ensuring that nothing happens to the irrigation of the landscaping and fixing it if it does. So all landscaping happens toward the end of the project, more likely late 2022, 2023 in that time frame. And the plans for this wall are vines. So they'll be planting some vines back there. It looks like I have Nikki back. Nikki, I answered John's question. Will you bring up the next one for us?
Sure. Sorry about that. Everything just kind of froze and then I got kicked off. All right. So okay, I think Bob is next then.
Yep. And the, let's see, I think you might be a little higher. So I started at the bottom of the list, just so you know, with John.
Mine might still be populating as I'm logging back in here.
Okay. Well, nonetheless, I'll answer Bob's, and then Robert will make sure to get to you as well, just so you know. The reconstructed wall will be the same height as the old wall is the statement, and that is true, 18 feet. Will vegetation be placed on the new wall? Again, yes, it'll be vines that'll be on that wall. So that work is going to happen more toward the end of the project. What do you see next there, Nikki? And we won't leave anybody out, just so you know.
Yes. Okay. I don't see a question from Robert.
All right. Let me put it up. I've got it. It's probably
okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay. So, Nikki, can you tell me, do you see that question now when I broadcast it?
Yes, I do see it now. So I'll look for it on my end here too.
Fantastic. Robert asks, do I understand there will be no wall and on wall 1, which is wall 1132, that's from Almond Park to Dahlia Circle. That wall will be demolished beginning in mid-January, right? And that'll take until the early first week in February. Then work will begin on the foundation. That foundation work, yes, will take approximately 4 months, a little under 4 months. And then they'll begin the barrier work, right? And then once the barrier, that's that 3-foot high concrete barrier, so it prevents any vehicles from coming off the freeway there. That barrier will be constructed in early June, as shown on the schedule there, and then the block wall will follow. Those are the plans. So it's about 4.5 months, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5 months or so before they start doing the block wall, and then it's finished in early July. So yes, 5 months until the wall is completed. And that's typical, about 5 to 6 months to get the wall completed. There's a little bit of sort of wiggle room in the schedule, but as there always is, but this is what you see here is the intended plan. I should note that a couple of things. One, this schedule is the anticipated schedule at this time. We try to account for site conditions and things we might find out there, but sometimes things happen and we have to make some adjustments. The utility work was delayed a little bit, but we are pretty confident that we have a solid schedule here, but I always put a caution on that and a bit of a disclaimer. In addition to the the schedule you see here, there's also the potential for rain to happen, right? So we may be delayed by weather. That's often an issue. And if we're still in the ground and not out of the ground and don't have the barrier up, which is basically the main time that you can see in the schedule that we'll have winter rains potentially. That could delay the schedule a little bit. Robert, coming back to your question about 5 months of no barrier from the freeway. There will actually be, there's barrier on the freeway now. There's K-rail on the freeway now. So that prevents cars from coming on. And that K-rail barrier is basically the same type, and it's secured. It's the same type of barrier that will be built at the base of the wall, except K-rail is temporary. And of course, the barrier that will be part of the wall is going to be permanent. In addition, there is going to be K-rail on Almond Avenue. So if somehow a vehicle made it through the K-rail from the freeway, there would be additional K-rail in place. Plus, there's a barrier, I believe, at the base of the existing wall in its various locations. So I hope that answers your question. And I will remove that one. And then I'm going to take a look, Nikki. The next question I see in here is from Bob, and that's the one we already answered. And then Brian, that's the next one I see. So,
okay, if you could go ahead and broadcast it. I think I still need to catch up here, and then the next one I see is, so once you get to that, I can jump back.
Sounds good. Brian actually has two questions. I'll answer them both. First one is, are they upgrading telecom infrastructure to fiber when they move it? That work has already been done. I'd have to check with the city. We've got some technical team members on in the background, so we'd have to check with the city to find out if there is some upgrades. If we can, we'll get you an answer to that before the end of the meeting. If not, we'll follow up with a response in a Q&A that we will send to everybody who registered for the meeting. Brian's other question is, what's the material for the wall? Is it concrete? So the foundation are going to be those cast and drilled hole piles, right? And so 260 plus for the long wall, 70 plus for the shorter wall. And again, these are augured holes deep into the ground. The depth of the piles is dependent on the wall design and what's needed for and also for the geology, in the ground. And those CIDH cast in drilled hole piles, they drill the hole, they put in a casing, they put in a rebar cage, and they pour in concrete. So those ultimately are concrete piles. Built on top of that is a concrete barrier. It's built to a certain strength and standard. It has rebar inside of it as well. So steel inside of all barriers along the project. And that is about 3 feet high. And then, of course, the wall will be block, split face block, and it will be, of course, installed on long bars of rebar, reinforcement bar. So I hope that helps.
All right. Our next question is from Jean.
So Jean asks, why is the wall being demolished and rebuilt in the first place? And it's to accommodate the widening. So one of the things that we discussed in an earlier meeting, and I should have prefaced this meeting with that, is this work is part of the 16-mile long freeway widening project, freeway improvement project. So between SR 73 and the 605, we are adding 2 lanes in each direction. There's a general purpose lane, so a regular lane, no toll, that's part of the project, and that's consistent with Measure M. This project is a Measure M project, which was passed in 2006 by a majority of voters, overwhelming passage in 2006, and it had 13 freeway projects associated with it. Those 13 projects were broken up into a little more than 24 segments and projects. This particular one is known as Project K. All of this information is available on our website, on OCTA's website. What I recommend, if you are interested in finding out more about this and other Measure M projects, is go to octa.net/OCGO, OCGO, and that is we've rebranded Measure M to OCGO, so that's why we use that website, that web URL. The other aspect I wanted to mention about this, so we've got the general purpose lane, and then we have a lane that we are adding in the center of the freeway. We are combining that lane with the current HOV lane, and that will become the 405 express lanes. The express lanes were added as a component based on essentially a request from Caltrans. The original project was to add two general purpose lanes in each direction. Caltrans requested that we add another HOV lane and combine it with the existing lanes to form the express lanes. Those are tolled lanes, and those ultimately a solo driver can use those lanes. This is just like the 91. Two in a vehicle can use the lanes for free for the first 2.5 years during non-peak hours, and then for the first 3.5 years. I think that's right, Nick, right? I think after the first 3.5 years, it is 3 or more only will be free. So 2 in the car or 1 in the car, solo driver in the car, those will pay a toll after 3.5 years.
And that express lanes FAQ is in our files.
Right. So if you look under the file section, you'll find a map that shows you the access points for the express lanes and the FAQ explaining the thinking behind them and the policy.
Oh, right. And then I think it was Brian that asked about the fiber. We have an answer from our technical team. Most new fiber, and they're not upgrading the services. It's the same services, just going to be overhead to underground. So it was overhead, now they're moving it to underground. And then the sound wall is reinforced masonry split face block. Try saying that 10 times fast. And it also has steel rebar for seismic precautions.
Perfect.
Okay. So let me go back here. So that was Jean's question, and then John had a question.
Where will wall 1 observation deck be positioned? Yes, there won't be any observation deck, unfortunately. So no, but you can watch the wall go up from right across the street. Nikki, I don't want to miss Mark's question. Do you see that? It's before Mark. It's before John.
All right.
If not, I can broadcast it.
Please do. I don't have that one.
Sounds good. Broadcast. There we go. Mark says it would be nice if parking was not allowed on the north side either. People are walking on the street during current work with cones, and it's dangerous. I see your point there, Mark. We'll certainly take that back to the technical team and to the city. But at this time, parking is planned to remain on the north side of the street.
All right. And the next question is from Susan.
All right. Susan says, we have some drainage issues on the northwest end of the neighborhood. There's also flooding on Lamson near the tennis center across from the golf course. Will the drainage work being done on your project affect these flooding issues either negatively or positively? The drainage work that we are doing is on the freeway side for drainage from the freeway. It has nothing to do with Almond Avenue, nothing to do with Lamson Avenue. I believe the city can speak to those drainage concerns. I know that our team is aware of them, what you've talked about, and I don't know if we're going to be involved in any activities related to those. But I would speak to the city about the drainage issues on Almond and on Lamson.
Okay. And Robert has a question.
Robert, so no sound wall from early February to June, about 5 months. About 4.5 months. So correct. That is correct. There will be, of course, the K-rail that we install. There will be chain link fence. Believe about 8 feet chain link fence or 6 feet chain link fence, actually, and then sound blankets affixed, attached to the chain link fence. So that's to mitigate the sound. It's certainly not going to be perfect, as I'm sure you've seen on other areas of the project. It's not like having a concrete wall in place, but it it is the mitigation measure that we have when we are replacing sound walls.
Okay, and the next question is from Brian.
Brian, concerned about acoustical properties. If just concrete, adding some acoustical wave guides to reflect freeway noise back to the freeway and not to drip up and over the wall would be nice. So the sound walls are designed and constructed per Caltrans standards. And we don't have any choice but to do that. So there's not going to be any change to the walls. I know Caltrans has in the past looked at sound attenuation, sound absorption materials, things like that, but none of that has actually panned out and worked very well. So this is the standard that we are required to follow and that we will follow.
Okay, and on the back end, we have some more info about the drainage questions from Susan. It will not affect any flooding negatively or positively, and the city is working on a project to address the drainage concerns on Lamson. That's from our city representative that we work with very closely. And then we're working to address the drainage at the tennis court with the city, which I believe is a little bit past Lamson as well. And then some more information here regarding parking that I'm also getting on the back end from our team who's working to get these answers as quickly as possible in live, real time. The construction process will allow for safe parking on the north side of Almond. If the desire of majority of the neighborhood is to remove the parking on both sides during construction, the city can definitely look into that request. So that's from our city representative as well. All right. And I think our next question here is from John. And Chris, you're on mute. You're on mute.
John asks, is sonic vibration being considered possible foundation failure? I don't have an answer to that question. I'm not sure I'm clear on what it is. So maybe you could clarify, in another note in the chat field. Vibration is something that we monitor throughout the project. I don't know that there's any requirement in this case because there's no pile driving involved. So typically on a bridge, when we build a bridge, the pile foundation portion of a bridge, these are steel piles that are driven into the ground. For the purposes of that work, there is vibration monitoring that happens, and that's in a certain distance from the work. In this case, there is no major vibratory activity like that for the construction of these walls. Therefore, we don't expect to have any kind of vibration issues or vibration monitoring. If that doesn't answer your question, certainly clarify in the chat, and we'll try to help out.
All right, and the next question is from Hugh, kind of a comment and question.
Mm-hmm. Why go through a lot of effort just to move the wall 4 feet? Is it to accommodate emergency parking space? So it is to ensure that to the greatest extent possible, the widening of the freeway through this area meets Caltrans standards, right? So you've got to ensure you've got the proper lane width and the proper shoulder width and the proper inside shoulder width and outside shoulder width. And we're adding 4 lanes total in this area. So this is a requirement because it's within the state right of way, and it is to ensure that the geometry of the design is supported.
So if it's easier for everyone to see the wall schedule, we can turn off our cameras, Chris. That's how we can take our photos off.
Oh, fantastic. I'll do that.
All right. All right, next question is from Brian.
So Brian says, as residents directly inconvenienced by this work, we should get a discount for the toll road access. Thank you for your update. I wish I could offer that to you, but I don't have that authority. I will say, though, you can take a look. I'm not sure if this information is in the this particular FAQ that we have, but I believe veterans and those with disabled placards can apply for lower tolls or no toll. We can get that information, and in fact, we'll include it in the Q&A. I will also say another thing. This work is expected to entirely be conducted during the day, right? So the reason I bring that up is because one of the things that we have as an option for us is temporary lodging for people when there's nighttime activity that's going to be loud and disruptive. That's not expected here at all. All activity will take place during the day. Crews typically will mobilize as early as 6 a.m. and then start work at about 7 and work till about 3 or sometimes 4, it depends. They have the option to work 24/7, but of course they're not going to do that, and they're certainly not going to do that here. There's no work on major holidays, Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving. So you'll have your piece there, but and remember, all of this activity is taking place from the freeway side, not from the Almond Avenue side.
All right, and we have a little bit more information regarding the question about foundation failure. We do not anticipate foundation failure. Design addresses liquefaction for seismic concerns and ground vibrations. And wall design includes significant safety factors to assure no foundation failure as well. So we have that information from our technical team. Thank you.
That's great.
And let's see, our next question is from Hugh.
Terrific. Hugh says, what mitigation efforts are taken to reduce noise level with the sound walls down? So what's going to happen is, and this will happen before any sound walls are taken down, before any demolition work. In mid-January, right, somewhere 15th to the 18th, somewhere in there, you'll see that crews will come and install K-rail, right? These are temporary K-rail, long concrete barriers. And on top of that K-rail, they will install chain link fence. Turn my camera back on. We'll look for some photos of that. Maybe we can show that to you as well. We'll include it in the FAQ. But what you see there is the white K-rail, right? The white barrier. Installed in that will be chain link fence, and hung on the chain link fence and attached to it will be sound blankets, right? So that will attenuate the sound to a degree, and that's the mitigation requirement per the contract for the contractor. Hope that helps.
All right, and John just answered back. Yes, that answered his question. Heavy vibration leading to problems, I think, is what he was saying. And then I don't see any other questions at the moment. Hopefully I didn't miss any. Our other team members on the back end are also checking and monitoring to help me, since I got kicked out of the system and thrown back in. And I know it takes a few minutes for people to type in their questions, so we'll just keep chatting as we go here.
Sounds good. So, I think there's, go ahead.
I think we just got one more, but it disappeared on me. Let me see if I can find it on the back end.
So, one of the things that we've experienced so far with sound walls being down, one of the concerns that I've heard brought up by this community in the past is, how will it be secured? So the K-rail will be angled in toward the existing wall on each end and secured at that location to the extent possible. It's not going to be perfect, right? But we also will be on the lookout for any kind of homeless, any kind of encampment that gets set up, we proactively seek that out. Our team does, to try to understand what's going on and help those people find a different place to stay other than the freeway right of way. So, but I just want to let you know that the K-rail will be up against the wall, and then the fencing as close to that as possible. And we'll do our best to do that. But if you see any issues, call our team. We'll get right on it. Email us. Anything anything you need from us, just give us a call. So Robert asks, how tall is the K-rail and the fence in total? I believe it will be approximately 9 feet, Robert, approximately 9 feet. So half the size of the current wall. And there's no way for us to make it a lot taller than that because it would be unwieldy and wouldn't work.
All right, I don't think we have any more at the moment. Just a little bit more regarding Hugh's question about mitigation efforts to reduce noise. I think you said this, Chris, but just another way to word it is the sound blankets are designed and fabricated to have sound absorption qualities. So they're made specifically for this. They're used on many, many projects. And they're used on this project and other areas. So that's what we'll be using in this area. And then I think you also explained this, Chris, the K-rail is 3 feet high.
Yes.
Latest question. And then the fence is 6 foot high. So a total of 9 feet.
Yep. Good.
Got confirmation from the technical team on that.
Good. If you haven't already, jump into the files section. Make sure to download those Almond Avenue wall exhibits. It'll give you details about the wall locations, the measurements, everything, all of the specifics depending on where you are along the path of the walls.
And then while we're waiting for some more questions to come in, sorry if I missed this, Chris, but did you already mention about our specific database for this area? Yeah,
Nikki. So I mentioned that if they go to the offers tab and click on the image there, it'll take them to our updates. We have another question from Carl. Will the wall west of Dahlia Circle be totally unchanged? That is correct. Yep, our work stops right about Dahlia Circle.
It's not very often we just have a yes or no answer that we can give.
Right.
All right. Okay, I don't see any others. And I'll just wait a few more minutes here to see. I know it takes a little bit of time to think about your questions. Making sure I got everyone so far.
Hoping the project has not inconvenienced people too much to date. I know that it's construction is never a good neighbor. It can be frustrating. The impact of the impact on traffic and congestion can be frustrating. Luckily, more toward the north end of the project, toward Seal Beach, you already dealt with your share of congestion and traffic from projects back when the West County Connectors project was being completed. So you've put in your fair share. So this time it's not quite affecting you all as much, which at least I hope that's the case, which is good.
All right, and Robert is asking the EIR and where can that report? Yeah.
Sure. So where can the EIR report be found? That is available through Caltrans. Caltrans was the lead agency during the environmental period for the project. They maintain all the environmental documents. So we will provide contact information in the chat shortly of how to contact their PIO office. and make a request for the EIR. I will mention that it's a very, very large document. It's not something they can mail to you. It would be something that would be uploaded to a cloud storage site, and then you could download it from there. But they're the source for the EIR. We'll provide that contact information shortly.
And I think if it's, it's easier to locate a specific section. So if you could be really specific about what you'd like to see, if there's, maybe a specific section, or if it's particularly about vibration or noise, provide us with that information so we can just pull that section, or have that section pulled for you. Or if you want the whole document, that's doable, of course, too. But because it's so big and so technical, sometimes it's best or easiest if you just need a specific section. All right, I don't see any other questions. Is it searchable? All right. I think it's something that you have to go through Caltrans, as Chris mentioned, and I'm not sure how they are processing it. It may be a public records request. Chris, do you know if they're handling it that way, or if they're just able to send it to the Inquirer?
Yeah, I don't know. It may be searchable. Well, sorry, I don't think it will require a public records request, but it's simple to fill one out if you need to, if they require it. But it is a PDF. There are some aspects of it that are searchable and some that are not. For example, there are comments and response to comments. Some of those pages were scanned in as PDF files, and those aren't searchable. But the sections you're looking for may be. I don't know if you're looking for noise or traffic, things like that. But you'll find those sections, those typical standard sections, are searchable. From within Adobe Reader, something like that.
All right. And then I reposted the link for the recording to this, which, as you mentioned, Chris, will be up within the next 24 hours on our website, our project website, or you can go directly to the link. And we also, Robert provided the answers to questions. We provided the information to Caltrans Public Information Office. So hopefully you can see that. And I don't see any other questions at the moment.
No problem. So some of you may have seen the work going on. You may come home via Lamson, right? So you're getting off at off the 405, perhaps at Valley View, Bolsa Chica. Half of that bridge has been completed and open to traffic, and they're working on the second half. They have started some of the foundation work, but they're still a ways away. There were a couple of things that kind of delayed us, some utility issues that delayed the work there. But we anticipate soon that pile driving will begin in that location. You likely will be able to hear that from where you live, if you're along Almond or in the College Park East community. That pile driving typically is going to take place during the daytime, though, so the ambient noise is much higher at that point because of traffic. So that could mask it, but they'll do the pile driving there. They'll do it on each of the two sides of the bridge, known as abutments, for the abutments, and then they'll also do it in the center median for the columns, or what's known as the center bent for there. And once they finish, they will cap those piles with the big concrete cap, and then that will be, in essence, the foundation, and they'll start to get out of the ground there and build the abutments, the sides of the bridge, and build the columns themselves. Once those are complete, the rest of the process goes to installing what's called false work, which is a temporary support structure for the bridge until it can support itself, right? They'll then form, using the false work, they'll form the bridge. It's made up of it's not this monolithic concrete structure. It's actually got open cells in it, and it's formed using plywood and other things. They'll install rebar, and there's just a ton of steel in all of these bridges to meet the latest standards. And then once they have that in place, they'll pour. They'll do a what's known as a stem and soffit pour, and that's the structure that you see once we take away all the false work. And in fact, once that structure is cured, well, I think they'll pour. I think they take the false work out, and then later they will do the deck pour, or it could be that they do the deck pour before removing the false work. But then you've got that bridge, and right now with Bolsa Chica, it's still anticipated to take a bit longer because of the delays. So, but hopefully we'll have some excitement in 2021 for that bridge, and that'll finish the work there. In addition, there's roadway work. I'm talking about Bolsa Chica Bridge, Bob. I see your question. I'm talking about the Bolsa Chica bridge, which is different from the Valley View Bridge, which was reconstructed as part of the West County Kindergarten project. So it's a little bit further from you. And the other work that we have, of course, is the roadway work. Drainage work has to come first, but and that's what's happening alongside the wall that's being reconstructed along Almond. But the roadway work includes laying a certain base, and then I believe there's some rebar involved in that as well, and concrete placement there. So that's what's coming up. There's also, you may have noticed, some work at the Seal Beach Boulevard Bridge, underneath the bridge, where we are adjusting the abutment slightly to accommodate the realignment of the on-ramp there, which again accommodates the widening. And all of the on-ramps are being realigned. You might recall back in the summer of last year, we completed some work with the Seal Beach Boulevard off-ramp from northbound 405. So that has been realigned. The on-ramp right adjacent to it, work will be done there. And then we've got the southbound side, the ramps there that also will be realigned. Meanwhile, Old Ranch Parkway, that on-ramp also will have to be moved slightly to accommodate the widening.
So John had one more question that made me laugh.
Oh, that's fantastic. John, you are a man after my own heart. Really would have liked to see Caltrans. Actually, it would be a great observation deck opportunity with a beer garden. I really like that idea as well. So I'm all for it. I will take that back to the Caltrans team, and it just may depend on who I talk to, right? So
yep.
We'll try our best.
Yes. All right. I don't see any more questions. I put as a sticky note, so hopefully you can see it, our phone number and project email if you think of questions after our meeting or anytime. We're always taking suggestions for beer garden placement and such.
Yep, and questions about construction activities, questions about what the design of something's going to be. Any questions you want to give, send our way. If we don't already have an answer, we've got a great team of folks, as you can tell from the questions that we got responses to during the meeting. We've got a great technical team that is very knowledgeable and can help us find the answers to your questions if we don't have them, and we will get back to you always. Again, super important that you sign up for alerts. We're doing most things digitally. Notification, let me mention this one last thing before we go. There is the demolition work that's going to happen. Our protocol for notification of the demolition work, and then prior to the start of construction as well, is to drop a flyer at your doorstep. We'll do the same thing for demolition. So about a week prior to demolition, once that date is solid and we've got it, then we will notify folks of the demolition date, right? So you're prepared in advance for that. Know for sure though that the K-rail is going to be down and the sound blanket's up before that. So once you see that, it's going to get close. One other thing of note is that the plan at this point, it's very preliminary, but the demolition plan is to start from west and go to east. So west to east is the plan in terms of demolition for both walls. And I think that's about it. Unless you all have anything else you have questions about, again, we'd be happy to answer them.
I will just remind everyone, I know Chris has said this a few times, but just in case you joined us, I know we froze for a bit there, but it is being recorded. So in case anything was missed, or if you joined us late, this is being recorded and it will be available on our website in the next 24 hours, or the link that you used to register or jump on the meeting, you can find it there as well if you need to rewatch it. And then one more question from Hugh before we leave. Let's see. There you go.
All right. Hugh's question, is there anything to be done to deal with the congestion on Bolsa Chica Bridge throughout the day, especially during rush hours until the bridge is completed? By the way, when is it expected to be completed based on your current schedule? I will ask the team in the background to help me out with the schedule question, and then I'll speak to the congestion question. So we have what's known as a maintenance of traffic team. Prior to stepping back a little bit, prior to this work, during the design process, during the preliminary design work, there was the development of a traffic management plan, and all the cities were involved in that. And there was an analysis of intersections and bridges, reduced width. Note that we've kept 2 lanes in each direction for Bolsa Chica pretty much the whole time. Same with all of our other bridges. We have very few that we've reduced. These are the 2-stage bridges that are like Bolsa Chica that are open to traffic during construction. But of course, the lanes are a bit narrower when we take away half a bridge to demolish and reconstruct it. And in addition, drivers are getting used to or dealing with different conditions, and that leads to this congestion. But the traffic management plan addresses that to the extent possible, right? So what you'll see is they'll make adjustments at intersections to extend a signal phase longer, or a left turn phase longer. We're always looking for ways to improve traffic flow and really keep it moving. But right now, and you bring up a good point, there's been a lot of discussion about Bolsa Chica, but it's actually optimal at this point. We have had some instances where some changes we've made, for example, the winds affected something recently, and that had to be reset because a left turn signal only let like 2 or 3 cars through on Gardenwood Boulevard. So that was very frustrating to folks. But generally speaking, you know, these intersections and the bridges themselves are working at their optimal ability given the current situation of construction. And what we just ask people to do is to add in that time to their travel time. And we realize it's frustrating and it's not the answer that any of us is looking for, but it's the best we can do. Nikki, have you heard about the construction schedule yet?
The information I was just given was that we will pour the deck next and then let it cure for 28 days prior to taking down or releasing the false work.
Yeah, that Nikki, I'm going to say that's Bolsa Avenue, not Bolsa Chica.
Oh, okay.
Right, and he was asking about Bolsa Chica, so we'll need to get the Bolsa Chica schedule information before the end of the call. Okay. And by the way, we're not going anywhere. So anybody who has additional questions, you know, we're here for you.
Yes. And Robert just said thank you. Thank you, Robert, for joining us.
You're quite welcome, Robert. Yes, and thank you for joining us. We really appreciate having everybody on. This is what we love to do. We're going to be doing it for another 3 years or so. So we'll be here.
And as far as schedule for Bolsa Chica, Phase 2 is anticipated to be done by October or fall next year and open in about a year from now, I guess.
Makes sense.
And Steve has a question.
Good. Steve's question, looking at the graphic, what do the pink and blue colors represent? You're talking about the wall schedule graphic, Steve, I'm going to assume. So this is basically what's known as a Gantt chart. So it shows you the time frame for the work that's going to be taking place. So, for example, wall demolition expected to take a little over 2 weeks. Thank you, Steve. I see your answer there. Wall demolition for wall number 1 expected to take a little over 2 weeks. Going to start about mid-January and continue into early February, very early February. Wall 2, the time frame is mid-February to late February for that demolition. And then when we come to wall construction, the overarching construction period for wall 1 is early February to early July. And that's the blue line. And then I've put subsequent lines underneath the pink. In my eyes, they're orange, but no problem. But it says that gives you information on the 3 major activities that are going to happen for the wall: the foundation work. Then we get out of the ground once we're done with that foundation work, and they work on the barrier, and then they install the block, the concrete block wall. As you can see, the foundation work takes the longest, and the foundation for the wall 1 has more than 260, I think about 270 piles that are going to be installed. And again, these are cast-in drilled hole piles, not driven piles, so it won't be loud. Although there will be noise, I don't want to say that. And then wall 2, you can see the foundation is about 2.5 months, a little over 2.5 months. So that's the extensive work that takes place. Hope that helps. Hugh says, thanks for the needed info. You're quite welcome. Email us, call us, whatever you need. We won't be posting really anything about the Almond wall on social media, but you can find out about other aspects of the project because the Almond wall, the 2 walls there really pertain to the College Park East neighborhood. So in that instance, I would recommend you definitely sign up for our alerts. The Almond Avenue specific alerts are terrific. Steve says, so the new wall will be in place by the end of July. Based on this schedule, and Nikki, if you could turn your camera off. So based on this schedule, yes, that is the plan. By the end of July, both walls should be reconstructed. We have experienced delays elsewhere with walls. We don't anticipate for these because, one of the things that I brought up, that I raised as a question is, hey, on some of these other walls, the water table's been higher than expected. So what are we doing in this case for this wall, knowing that possibility might exist? And the designer, for the project, designed these particular cast and drilled hole piles to be wet piles, so they will be able to be installed irrespective of the water table or any issues there related to water. Once they're out of the ground, things go very quickly. So if we keep on pace for the foundation, then yes, I anticipate that mid-July date, and certainly by the end of July, the walls will be completed. If we run into problems and there is delay, we will notify the community. We'll do it typically through the email alerts, or if somebody calls and asks, we'll of course tell you. Our goal is to be as transparent as possible about this process and to make sure you know what's going on and keep you updated, because it's so frustrating when you never hear stuff and you don't know what's going on. So I hope that helps.
I think that's it on questions.
Great.
And just going to, if you could turn your camera back on, we'll just do that.
I will. Yes, I do want to Let me just check something real quick. I want to make sure that I didn't misspeak. No, yes, I spoke correctly. So the demolition work I mentioned was going to take place starting west to east, and that is the plan. It's preliminary, but that is the plan at this time. Susan, Steve, is it still the plan to install the temporary sound barrier before demolition begins? Absolutely. That was a criteria well established by the city, by city officials, and a very clear statement. And the contractor understands the importance of that and is going to make sure that happens. And we're going to hold their feet to the fire to make sure it happens too. Great. Susan, many thanks to the two of you and the entire team. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your time. You know, I hope these kinds of meetings are more convenient. Typically, we would do these in the past. We've done them as neighborhood meetings at a local park. This way, though, you don't have to leave your beer garden if you don't want to, John. But you also don't have to leave the comfort of your home, and you get to tune in online, and everybody gets to see the questions, the answers. It's recorded for later viewing. So we think this is a really good way to communicate, and we hope you've enjoyed it, and that it's easy for you to pass along to folks who haven't seen it once the recording is up tomorrow.
All right, I think that's our last question. Again, I have our email and phone number up here if you think of anything else.
Great. Thank you all. Have a very good night. Very safe rest of your week and weekend, okay? Thank you.